shared, but we are recording so that we can send this out for future access. And there's a lot of links that are embedded within the presentation. So we wanted to make sure that folks would have access to those. And then just also, you know, please bear with me as we all kind of figure out this new virtual meeting space. So today is my first official time hosting a virtual meeting, although kind of like this little box over here in the right, I've attended many meetings in the past couple weeks where I was joking earlier that I think that I've looked like at least one of each of these little creatures in the boxes here. So if technology issues pop up or anything, please use the chat box, and hopefully everyone knows how to use the chat box. But if you kind of go along the bottom of your screen, it should be a chat box that pops up. So just let us know if there's anything that you know, pops up along the way, and we'll figure it out together. So hopefully by the end of all of this, you'll have a brief explanation on the stages of grief and how they apply to the abrupt closure of schools, as well as to the COVID-19 pandemic in general. Ideas about how to process, you know, the school closure and kind of the grief reaction that we're all feeling. And then using that trauma-informed lens, understanding how to support your students' social emotional growth and well-being during the COVID-19 school closures. And then the hope is that most of these ideas that we talk about in strategies today are ideas that can be easily incorporated or implemented within your classroom next school year. So kind of looking at the stages of grief, one of the most well-known models was developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was a psychiatrist, that back in 1969, she wrote a book that was on named Death and Dying, inspired by her work with the terminally ill. However, though, grief, we understand, can also be caused by situations. So for instance, an end of a relationship, you know, a divorce, you know, anything that is lost. And of course, we all experienced the loss to the closure of the school year. You know, there was many, you know, in the education field, a lot of our fun planned events, such as field day, moving up ceremonies, you know, those things happened towards the end of the school year. But we also just have the loss of, you know, the curriculum planning that we did, and the things, you know, we didn't feel like we were finished with our students quite yet. And then also on top of that, though, we're also dealing with kind of everyday normalcy, like our routines, our structures, our responsibilities. You know, our day-to-day life has changed in general. So I thought that most specific to kind of the situation maybe that we're all kind of in right now was this definition of grief. And it's grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. So we've all definitely kind of gone through some sort of probably grief reaction. There's 5 stages to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. You know, within each of these different stages. So in denial, you may have feelings of confusion. There may be shock. There's, you know, some fear associated. Within, you know, anger, you know, frustration, anxiety, bargaining. That's when we're kind of, you know, in this place, like, how do we find new meaning to what's going on right now? You know, we may be, you know, having signs of depression, so just feeling overwhelmed or helpless. And then, you know, the final stage hopefully is coming to that acceptance, exploring new options, making a new plan, and kind of moving on. Now, some important things to point out, though, with processing our grief is that there's no one way to grieve. Everyone has a different response, and that's okay. Not everyone will even experience each stage of grief, and some may revisit a stage of grief that was previously completed. Grief is not linear, so we may have, you know, some anger, and then we have acceptance, and then we find ourselves the next day back, you know, into kind of a bargaining, and that's okay. So it's allowing yourself the space to experience all of these feelings and acknowledging those feelings. So, you know, ignoring your feelings will not help them go away. And in fact, many times it can prolong those feelings, or they can manifest in other ways, such as anxiety or depression. Sometimes they can manifest in physical symptoms, such as insomnia, you know, headaches, stomach aches. What is good to kind of bring ourselves back to, or what we could try to do at this time, is really focusing on what we can control versus what we can't control. So we can't control, you know, that school's closed early. However, we can still connect with our students. That still can happen. And so in looking at that and thinking about that, just kind of honoring your losses in those ways. So some ways to kind of honor your grief. making sure that you are socially connected. And I know that there's been a lot of talk recently, even with, the term social distancing. That's not what we want. We want physical distancing at this point, but we need social connection more than ever. As far as, with our staff members at our school, we've still continued with virtual grade level meetings. We're still having our staff meetings once a week. We're having our committee meetings, such as like PBIS or student engagement. And I've added and been a host of like wellness chats that we just once a week. It's just for us to get together and just check in with one another. Continue to be a team. We didn't, you know how a school works. There's nobody that works alone within that education system. So continue to be that team. Also reach out to friends and family on platforms like Zoom, FaceTime, Facebook Live. My friends and I will be trying out the House Party app this weekend, which we're going to do a virtual wine tasting. And so Google Hangouts, Skype, phone calls, anything to stay connected. Also creative expression. Now's the time to journal, write, use art, music, really engage in your hobbies and interests and kind of creatively express that way. That's another great way that sometimes people don't want to talk about these things, but creative expression really allows kind of that ability to kind of release. Make sure that you're practicing self-care. Be kind to yourself every day. Physical activity, not only do endorphins are released when we're physically active, not only do they help boost mood, but just physical activity supports general wellness overall. If we're not physically well, emotional wellness and physical wellness definitely go hand in hand. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of our bodies. Make sure to keep like a gratitude list or journal. It doesn't have to be anything formal. Just write down, some of the things that you were grateful for or just, blessed to have each day. Meditate, yoga, allow yourself time to just slow down each day. And if you need to, it's okay to connect with a counselor or your employee assistance program or support group. But really, it's knowing that we need to connect with one another. So another way to really honor your grief and your loss is when I talk within educational settings, kind of the number one thing that I hear all the time, or most often, is, I really want to connect with my students. I really want to connect with that student in my class that's really difficult, or maybe that seems distant, or that sometimes there's, behaviors that I see that come from the student. I really want to connect, but I don't have the time. So this is when we can make that shift, because now is the time. So as educators, you're probably very familiar with Virginia's 5 C's. So of course, the Virginia Department of Education profile of our future graduates. So this is what we want our graduates to look like within Virginia. And we talk a lot about the 5 C's. Well, the 5 C's are different right now. Our 5 C's now should really be based on communication, connection, care, compassion, and comfort. This is not just for teachers. This is not just for parents. This is for everyone, our students especially. Our students need us to kind of connect and show kind of we connect with them every day in the school day, but now we need to show that this connection, this care, this concern goes beyond the classroom. And this was from Wendy Turner, who was 2017's Delaware Teacher of the Year. But it really kind of reinforces kind of what all of us probably are feeling that we need right now. So as educators, relationships are kind of paramount, not only for learning to happen. I mean, it's essential for learning to happen, but just to create that safety, the proper growth, and just emotion regulation. So I have a quick video here. Let me make sure that Okay, so let me know if you guys can't hear this, and then feel free to kind of chime in after.
You had so much to offer yesterday. You okay?
I'm tired.
So what's going on?
Strong relationships are central to the learning process.
Sorry, guys.
You had so much to offer.
And what the science of learning and development tells us is that we need to create learning environments which allow for strong long-term relationships for children to become attached to school and to the adults and other children in it.
When children have experiences of closeness and consistency and trust, oxytocin is released. Oxytocin has many, many positive effects on the development of the brain. So when we think about a relationship, we're not just talking about being nice to a child. We're talking about a child having an experience of attunement and trust strong enough to release the hormone oxytocin.
Good morning, Ariella. How you doing today?
The purpose of the morning greeting is to connect with them and to just make sure that I'm seeing them as humans. Like I'm making that relationship with them, making that bond.
I prioritize relationship building because getting to know them is the best part of the job.
When I come in the morning, we usually talk about things that are happening in our community.
We're trying to build caring and respect.
The teacher is trying to understand who I am and my values as a person.
When I have a free 45 minutes or an hour, I think to myself, I could sit down and catch up on grading, or I could go and make connections, whether it's a smile or a joke or a reminder. It validates their presence in the building.
Rock it out in the art room. It starts from so much honesty and transparency with kids. It's really easy to strive to be this like idealized, always ready to go elementary school teacher, and that's not real and that's not human. When people start talking about other things while I'm still giving directions, it feels frustrating for me and I have to take a breath. My students connect most with me when they see that I also struggle and I also have challenges. It takes a lot of vulnerability on my part.
Total familiarity.
When that student knows that you care about them, when they know that you're a human,
Let's think about that.
their academic performance in your class is going to be better.
If I'm comfortable around them, then I'm more confident around them, and it's easier to ask questions and things like that.
So when you're looking at this graph, what is it that you think happened?
Some teachers I don't always get along with the best, so then sometimes I'm like, I can't do it, so I'm just not gonna do it. But when I like the teacher, I want to do their work. I'll be like, I can learn this.
You all have done outstanding work.
Emotion and learning are completely connected. If you're in a positive emotional space, if you feel good about yourself, your teacher, that actually opens up the opportunity for more learning.
Good to see.
Sorry, guys. So anybody want to share out maybe initial thoughts or reaction after watching the video? And feel free to use the chat box.
Hello, this is Tress. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to respond to the video because when the young man was saying that he connects with his teacher, he learned from teachers that he respects. And I feel the same way because my son is like that. Mm-hmm. When he has when he likes the teacher and he feels like the teacher likes him and stuff, then he works harder for them.
Right, and that's the thing. Like with,
and then when he doesn't have in that class.
Right, and that's kind of like all of us. I mean, we all want to kind of feel respected and known outside of just our professional identity. And, you know, I always tell the students, you know, you right now, your professional identity is being a student. That's your job. But just thinking of us as adults in our job, you know, our principals or administrators, we want them to know and feel so much more connected with them and kind of leading, you know, the school to meet the goals when we feel connected with them as well. And so sometimes we don't think that, you know, our kiddos and our students, you know, feel that same way. Just knowing that the care and concern is deeper than just the academics. You know, like she said, being seen, seeing them, providing validation, just knowing that, and knowing that we're all human together, that even as adults, even as teachers, as educators, we make mistakes. There's no such thing as perfection, and being vulnerable kind of in that and authentic. Somebody else says that in their morning meetings, that in their morning meetings that allowing everyone to speak, even though they may not feel comfortable to do so in front of the whole group, we'll kind of pull them aside later. That's great. So just again, kind of, hearing more than just the academics, knowing. I love that. People don't know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Is that Rita, the Champions for Children? I'm trying to remember her last name. I think that was her quote. But let's see, we greet students at our doors every morning, and it sets the tone for the day, and that's awesome. I mean, wouldn't we all like somebody to kind of greet us? I know that I've been greeted by a hello and a welcome, and sometimes I've been greeted with a task list, and just think about, how that feels compared to just somebody smiling and letting you know that they care, that you're here. Let's see, guys are sharing lots of great information.
Supernatural love. For people say, just help me and not to find a way.
I'm sorry, I think someone was trying to share and I had a hard time hearing. Do you mind repeating that? Well, thank you all for sharing. So just kind of thinking about, so relationships are the foundation of learning and development. So babies' brains are wired to be in relationships from birth, and brain growth actually occurs within supportive, nurturing relationships. And many of you have maybe seen the two different brain models, the one with the child that has been attended to and has kind of grown up in a supportive, nurturing environment versus the one that has dealt with emotional neglect. And you can see that there are huge deficits within the brain of the child that is emotionally neglected. Interactions with people and within the environment cause the connections to form and strengthen or not, depending on if they have that nurturing, safe environment. And then toxic stress and/or trauma can weaken the architecture of the developing brain, which can lead to lifelong problems, not only in learning and behavior, but physical and mental health as well. And so I think that, especially being in the position I am, this time right now that we're in could be, a traumatic event for some folks. We have, our brains as educators are probably going to those students that were worried about that school was the safe place for them. School was the consistent place. School was where meals were provided and that they had, caring adults around them. And we don't know, and are unable to control a lot of what's happening with those kiddos in the homes that are not so safe. So this can be, so just knowing that, and kind of one of the biggest mitigators to toxic stress is the support system and the relationships around us. So emotion regulation develops through interactions with caregivers such as parents, teachers, coaches, and other mentors. If kiddos don't feel safe and supported, if classroom structures aren't set up, such as like routines, the visuals, that expectation lists through like PBIS, this can really kind of hinder some of that emotion regulation. Emotion regulation development is dependent on that predictable, responsive, and supportive environment. So when you think about next year, thinking about how would you like your classroom structure and setups, even just how your classroom is arranged can really kind of add to the feelings of safety. PBIS, some of you may be PBIS schools, some of you CHAMPS is kind of a classroom management system that falls in alignment with PBIS, but really it goes back to relationships. Because if you think about all learning takes risk, and all learning takes vulnerability. I don't think any of us are going to take risk or be vulnerable with people that we don't feel safe with or that we don't have trusting relationships with. And I know on this slide, it really talks about it's geared towards parents, but many of us might be playing parent and homeschool educator right now, but really helping your child to kind of remain regulated and prioritizing your regulation is going to be the biggest factor right now. Like, academics are not going to be what protects our kiddos from these events that are happening right now. It really goes back to relationship. So just, these are some online platforms that we've used and that we've explored using. And there's been a lot of talks about, equity. And this is where, it's kind of really come to the forefront with now having kids being homeschooled, because some of these online platforms we know that our kids cannot access. So it's trying to be creative of how we access them online. Google Hangout, Google Classrooms, sometimes those, when you're working with smartphones or tablets, may not be able to easily access these, Google Documents, though, might be a way around it, where you can start a document and kind of type this working letter to a student where the child can then come back, and kind of fill in. You can, respond back and forth to one another. So it doesn't require you both being live at the same time. I know that I created a Google number, which was very easy to do, and still you're able to use your phone number. However, it just pops up on their caller ID and as the number that you get to pick. And then you just get sent emails. I know that many classrooms were already set up with Class Dojo, so that might be a way that you can send quick lessons. I think the cap is like 8 minutes, but you could do quick 8-minute check-ins. Zoom like this, Seesaw, Flipgrid, YouTube. Most smartphones can access YouTube. So maybe setting up like a private YouTube account, or even our school set up a private YouTube channel. And now what we do as the teachers and educators is upload onto that channel. My kids are in, my own kids are in middle and high school, and I've had teachers reach out to them through TikTok videos, because this is now just a chance for, us to just kind of step back and view each other just as humans. Facebook Live, FaceTime is always an option. Just with any of these, be sure to check with your district about acceptable online platforms. I know some districts, really worry about the privacy and security issues, so just make sure that you check with your district. But here's some that we've used most recently to kind of connect with students. And then there will be some ideas at the end of how to, reach out to kids that maybe don't have access to technology. And then also, though, now there's lots of resources kind of throughout the community, and some internet providers that are offering free access. If that's, something, I know still even then we're trying to figure out how to get our kiddos computers, or, because my kids are on Schoology, and if they didn't have their laptops to be able to access Schoology, it's really difficult to do that from the smartphone or tablet. So just understanding that still even having access doesn't guarantee they can always access these different platforms. So kind of moving into the different strategies. So much like all that we do in education, it isn't about recreating the wheel. I tried to put together familiar resources of things that were kind of already put together and packaged for you, so there wouldn't be, anything else to kind of add to, especially during times of high stress. We don't need our to-do list to get longer. So I wanted things to be familiar, maybe things that you are already aware of that were just packaged neatly that you could just get right to doing. So class meetings. So I saw in the chat that many of you already do class meetings. Well, who says, your class meetings are morning circles, or they could be afternoon circles, or they could be midday chats can't continue? Well, no, they create that safe, supportive environment, which is needed to learn. It's also strengthening a student's social emotional skills, also their conversational skills, and their ability to problem solve together. This is where at our school, we bring our problems to morning circle, and we help, support the kids to problem solve together. It fosters the healthy relationships to develop between the students as well as teacher to student. And again, it promotes that culture of respect, openness, and trust. It is a trauma-informed practice, and it helps develop positive character, and it creates that classroom community. We call them morning circles in particular because that's kind of helped us guide our teachers and staff to restorative circles, which is something that we're hoping to bring more into the school next year, but just kind of bringing that language in and getting folks kind of used to that. And, you could, with having these classroom meetings, a set time. So kind of like our wellness chats that we're doing right now at our school is I have a running wellness chat that airs or that's live on Thursdays at 2 p.m. But, you know, that doesn't mean that everybody has to join. People know it's no pressure. It's come as you are and when you can. And it could be the same thing. It could be that you offer that predictability and kind of structure for your students, that you set up the class meeting times, and, you know, if 5 show, great. If 1 shows, great. You're still reaching that 1 student. But it gives some predictability in their routine. Emotion check-in. So just like you saw the teachers doing the welcomes and the greeting, this can kind of be right after that. So it could be that you have a group check-in, so something kind of demonstrated in the right corner here, where your name would go on the sticky side, so that way you're protecting privacy. And then this way, so the kiddos that are putting, you know, stickies on, I'm in a really dark place, or I'm having a hard time, you would know that, okay, maybe these are kiddos that I need to pull aside and have that one-on-one chat to really kind of do a check-in. We've had students that have experienced deaths the previous day and didn't know what to do with themselves other than to come to school. And if we hadn't done that kind of check-in, we would have never known that would have happened. But again, you know, them feeling like school is their safe place and that people would be kind of tuned into them, they came to school. But that's something so important to know, and it will allow you to make the necessary referrals and or connection with the student, and then even additional support staff, bringing in, you know, the school counselor, social workers, psychologists, or at this point even connecting to community resources. So you could also do the individualized emotion check-ins, and a lot of teachers at the school I'm currently at have now the right box, the how are you feeling, have put that on top of their kind of warm-up, their morning work and warm-up. So, you know, just kind of assessing that way. So if you're worried about, you know, privacy, and you don't want, you know, everybody's kind of check-in sheet or check-in, emotion check-in on the wall, you could do the individual, and it could just be incorporated. Or it could be that each child has, you know, a thermometer that they can refer to throughout the day to kind of gauge kind of what's going on and how they're doing. But these individual emotion check-ins could easily happen over the phone or any of the online platforms as well. So wellness check-in. So these are like questions that maybe you would bring to a morning circle or just a class meeting to discuss. These are in particular to the COVID-19. So these stems are kind of allowing students to talk about, you know, how they're feeling or what's going on, you know, during this time. However, your STEM questions could be based on character trait of the month, or if you have a PBIS trait of the month, or maybe you have some classroom concerns that are happening, such as maybe you're seeing some disrespect in the classroom. And so you could have a STEM question of, you know, what's one way that we can show respect within our classroom, and kind of lead from there. But again, these are just kind of checking in to kind of what's going on, how the student's feeling, and what's going on right now, and then in the classroom later. Any questions about any of these? I'm just going to check really quick. So some more follow-up questions about the importance of our students knowing that they're loved, and that emotion and education being connected was important and powerful. So yes, thank you for sharing. So now looking at, so emotion, somebody asked, how can you do the emotion check-ins online? So some of them you could, almost like a Zoom session like this, where you share and have kind of that screen popped up. So let me see if I can go back there so that you could kind of just share out this screen and just say, you know, how are you feeling today? Or maybe if you can't show this, just ask them, how are you feeling today? And it can be done just online or through the Zoom, a Google Classroom. So any of those platforms you could access. I like the Zoom because then I can share the screen, and you can also kind of have it so that you can see everybody. I have not yet done a Google Classroom, but I know that some of our teachers are using the Google Classroom and would be able to use it that way. But I like that this way, or this, I guess, feels most comfortable for me right now, but I'm still exploring and learning myself. So thank you. So we'll move into coping skills. So grounding exercises, and these again are all things that are going to be helpful in the school year next year. So basically grounding exercises are meant to kind of bring you to the present moment. It keeps your mind and your body kind of working together. So anytime we're caught up in strong emotions like anxiety, anger, or maybe you see your student becoming dysregulated, grounding exercises are a great thing to kind of do. These would be great to do like maybe during transitions, or just if you realize there's a whole lot of energy kind of in the classroom, or during stressful times like this, that we should take time each day to just kind of ground ourselves. So this technique takes you through the 5 senses just to help remind you to be in the present or stay in the present. And it's a calming technique that can get you through tough or stressful situations. And the thing that's good is that we can all kind of do this on our own. So you can model this for the kiddos and you can do it right with them. And then you're practicing it as well. So it's supporting your wellness while we're also modeling and then supporting student wellness. So this script right here is usually how I began a grounding exercise. I would just ask the whole class to take a deep belly breath to begin. And then I'd ask them to look for 5 things around the room that you could see. And I would ask them, if we're doing it as a group, to just kind of list them in your head. And then touch, so paying attention to your body and noticing the things that you can feel or touch. So, maybe that I can feel my hands resting on my desk and, my feet resting on the floor. 3 things that you are listening for, you can hear. 2 things that maybe you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. So sometimes people will use like a mint or something like that to kind of, savor and kind of, be able to kind of bring your focus to that taste. But it doesn't have to be. It could just be that they think of something that they taste, or reflect on something they've tasted, or maybe something that they can still taste that's from, lunch earlier. And then to take another deep belly breath to kind of end. And usually you'll see that it kind of brings students back and helps them re-regulate. You could also turn these into like a mindful or a grounding walk. And so when you go out into nature and kind of do these things, and then you're kind of connecting, to the nature around you. So just to kind of mix it up. So I've had students that, as we're walking outside on the track, to kind of, burn some extra energy or stress, that will also then turn into like some of the grounding as we're walking, and just pay attention to the things around us. So breathing exercises. When you breathe deeply, a message is sent to your brain that's basically, says, hey, we've got to relax, we've got to calm, like it's okay to do so. So it signals the nervous system to calm down. And I always joke with the kids and say, you know what, you got to breathe anyways, right? But if you ask them and not really, show them or support them, how to breathe, then sometimes you'll get quick, rapid breathing, which is not going to be helpful. So bubble breathing is one that I always like to do, because I think, it's not just telling them, hey, let's just breathe. It's something fun. It's playful with it. And if you think about teaching bubble breathing, in order to not make the bubbles pop, you have to make slow, controlled breaths. And so that's what I'll do. So at first, I'll ask the kiddos, why don't we just blow some bubbles together? And sometimes I'll see if it's in a moment that they're maybe getting dysregulated, or I can tell that maybe there's some agitation or some stress there. I'll say, you know what? Let's blow some bubbles together. And so it's a non-confrontational way to kind of, help them with that anxiety that they may be feeling. It's not implying anything. It's just, let's just blow some bubbles together. And at first they'll blow, and usually the children are very rapid and do it. And I say, you know what, can I show you another way? Let's have a contest. And this takes really slow breathing. Let's see how big of a bubble we can blow. And that's when we practice together. I've used this technique before where I've blown bubbles with a particular student, and then I was called to support them because they were in the middle of having a really hard time, and classroom stuff was kind of getting thrown around. And so I just came in and just started blowing bubbles, and they kind of looked at me, and it was enough to kind of switch that train of thought. And I just handed the wand to them, and he just went right into the bubble breathing. And that just, without me trying to confront him in that moment, or, just showed like, hey, let's just blow bubbles together. And then once he was re-regulated, we could kind of talk. Shape breathing, there's all kinds of websites that you can go to download the different, this one on the right is star breathing. But you could use your hand. So deep breath in and hold and exhale. In, so it doesn't have to be that you use worksheets. It could just be your hand. Pinwheel breathing. I have lots of different pinwheels. Same thing to help practice controlled breathing. Can you make the pinwheel go really fast? Now, I want you to try to make the pinwheel go really slow and just kind of control. So helping them kind of control their breathing. Balloon breathing, that may not be something that everyone is able to do right now, depending on what resources they have at home. But what I've done is have kids maybe kind of name the feeling, and we blow that. So maybe this balloon would represent anger. So we're going to blow our anger into the balloon, and we kind of even draw on it. Like, this is kind of what my face feels like, or my body feels like right now. And we can work through this. And now we're going to release it. And so kind of even seeing that release and letting the balloon kind of, fizzle out is something that is very helpful to students and kids. There are a ton of mindfulness activities and websites. So Cosmic Kids, Calm. I like the calm.com in particular right now for boys, because LeBron James has his own kind of mindfulness set of activities. And I'm like, what, preteen, teen, or even younger boy is not going to want to hear, from LeBron James talking about mindfulness and using breath. Little Flower Yoga, Breathe, Think, Do, Go Noodle, Brain Pop. Go Noodle and Brain Pop are like fabulous resources for all kinds of educational activities. You'll see later I have it again listed as for like brain breaks. Mind Jetty, and then Movely, and that's like a little monkey that practices mindfulness. Also, this mindfulness choice board, this is a free download right now on Teachers Pay Teachers. So this is something that could, be sent out digitally through email to your students and families. It's something that you could print off and have in the classroom for next year, but it's just, I thought while it was free, it was a great resource to have, and also had additional choices for mindfulness. So I'm just going to check real quick to see. I think there was a couple more questions. So questions about how to do like the grounding, maybe over the phone or online. So it could be, just guiding them through that. So, okay, let's, while we're on the phone, let's take a minute, you're going to hear my voice. I'm going to walk you through these steps, and we're going to do this together. So if, right now, let's both take a deep breath together and exhale. And if you could, think of 5 things that you can see. And just, silently list those in your head. Or they can, since it's just, if it's just between the two of you, then that's, then you could have them list them out loud, depending on, what feels good to you or what feels good to, the student. Let's see. All of the resources, yes, will be emailed to you after this. So you'll have everything after the training. You'll definitely have access, because I've embedded the links, trying to make it super easy for you guys so that everything is in one place. Let's see. And I know there's one person that's worried about that. They are kind of a resource / encore person, and trying to figure out how to reach like the whole school. And this is where we decided as a school that we were going to make a YouTube channel so that we could upload things. And I think it's on the platform Seesaw, is where it's very collaborative. So the classroom teachers, if you're linked to the online platform Seesaw, the classroom teachers can add in consultants. So like our art teacher is working to do art lessons, but it's through like the Seesaw account that the classroom teacher has originated for her classroom. But I'm happy to, if you want to email me after, and my information will be at the end of how to, as like an encore or resource teacher, where you're really trying to reach the whole school and you don't have one particular classroom, you're trying to reach everyone. I'm glad to share resources on that. And you'll see that I do have some book talks that are coming up next that it could be, and I know that gets tricky too. There was a lot of discussion about copyright issues. And so these book talks and lessons that I've embedded here are ones that are directly from the author or a different source, so you wouldn't have to worry about copyright issues. Let's see, I'm just, whoop, sorry, I'm via my technology, so I'm just checking to make sure there's no. Okay, so kind of moving into lessons and book talks. So again, Julia Cook, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Julia Cook, but Julia Cook used to be a former school counselor. Now she travels all over to give social emotional talks, and she has a huge resource library of books, and she's actually going to be on Mondays and Fridays reading some of these, and then she has question and answer sessions and has little activities sometimes that she has planned. So she's tried to make it about topics that, you know, kind of irrelevant. So Wilma Jean, the Worry Machine, we've missed that one obviously, but you can still find that if you Google. There's a lot of these books are being read online. So that one is one that, you know, just talks about Wilma Jean and that, you know, her worry, which seems pretty, you know, relevant at this time. I'm a Booker, Treat Me with Respect, that really has to do, that has something to do with like cleanliness. And Julia Cook has already made, or is in the works of making, another book that has to do with washing your hands. Personal Space Camp, though, is again, that was kind of, the reason that one was, or is being read, is it's about keeping or respecting personal space. And so with our distancing, physical distancing, that, you know, we need to make sure that we're respecting personal space. My Way or the Highway is kind of, you know, that inflexible thinking. The Great Compromise, Bubblegum Brain, that one's a really good one about a growth mindset. So that one could be one of really focusing on resiliency. Baditude is about a little boy that has a really bad attitude, and by the end he's flipped to an attitude of gratitude. And then Soda Pop Head is about exploring anger. But there's the link to her online bookstore, so you can look through, that way you can look through all the different books that she does have to offer and find, you know, which ones that maybe would work for your students right now. And you could find it already being read online. That way you wouldn't have to worry about copyright issues, but it could be a way to connect with the students or send them the video link and say, like, I want all of you to pay, you know, listen to this book today and email me with questions if you can't bring them all together online. The We Do Listen Foundation, this is for the littles. It's Howard Wigglebottom. So their vision is, their intention is to enable children to enjoy inner peace and communicate in a more effective way. So they have books, animated books, songs, posters, lessons. These are activities that are geared towards like your pre-K. It says third grade. Some third graders may not want anything to do with Howard Wigglebottom, but there's the website for that. But all of your lessons are prepped and, you know, and ready on there. There's coloring sheets, there's all kinds of activity ideas, but everything's ready to go. I'm afraid to take you to these Google Doc links though. So on the left side are focused on pre-K to second grade, and then on the right, third through fifth grade. I cannot take any credit for this. This was a school counselor in another state that created, it's 10 activities within each, and they're very simple activities. So it might be a book that's read and then suggestions or STEM questions of what to discuss with students, and maybe an activity, and it's all geared for home. Social emotional learning at home, but who says you can't bring these into your morning meetings next year, because they're very brief. You know, aside from the books being read, which may be about 5 minutes or less, the lessons can be done in like 10 minutes or less. So these might be ideas that you use for right now at home, but yet you can bring into your morning meetings. So these Google Doc links should all work when we send you the presentation after. If not, let me know and I'll make sure that you have access. I just don't trust my screen sharing capabilities quite yet. So I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Sanford Harmony, but for Henrico County Public Schools, there was an initiative this school year that Sanford Harmony curriculum was rolled out across all of the elementary schools and some of the middle schools. It is a 100% free curriculum. You will get an entire box set for your classroom in your use at the school year or at the start of the school year. So that's something that you can request online and they'll send you your packet. However, they've adapted to online learning. So they know that we're teaching from home right now, and they've developed Harmony at Home. If you look on the website here, the link at the bottom, there's an online training. There's like a video that you watch, 26 minutes, that kind of gives you kind of the overview of how Sanford Harmony works. All of the resources are free and accessible to download, and it focuses on 5 themes of diversity and inclusion, empathy and critical thinking, communication, problem solving, and peer relations. And this really, we started this year with our morning meetings and morning circles were based around using the Sanford Harmony curriculum. However, there's cross-curricular lessons, as well as like 40-minute, so extension social emotional lessons that can be done within the classroom. So if you have that pie time or just extra time, or especially right now when we have that time, being able to provide some of those extended lessons as well, but it's 100% free. So just some things for fun, because we've got to keep this fun, we've got to keep this lighthearted, and so just having some things for fun that we do. Let's see. So physical activity and brain breaks. Physical activity is so important. We need, you know, in order to have effective kind of focus and attention, we need to have these brain breaks. So that's physical activity kind of needs to occur kind of in different parts throughout the day. Go noodle and brain pop again, you know, have wonderful brain break activities. Right now, you could just do a Just Dance. And there's a whole YouTube channel for Just Dance videos. You could do a Just Dance together. A Kids Bop dance along video, or these are things that you could do on rainy days within the classroom that you need to burn energy, that there's Just Dance and there's Kids Bop. The last video, the freeze dance, that one also is one that can kind of focus on following directions and helping students practice self-regulation, because you're dancing, you're following directions, and it tells you to freeze. So it's kind of making sure, you know, that kids are tuned in, but also kind of self-regulating on their own in a fun and playful way. So some social emotional challenge, there's lots of boards. I've even sent social emotional boards, like kindness boards, home to families to do. So I've created before like a kindness challenge or social emotional challenge for our teachers and staff, and then a separate one for the kids, and then another one for families that the kids can then go home and do with their families. But these are 25 at-home social emotional learning activities. Here's a social emotional learning challenge and scavenger hunt, and these are all things that, you know, people should be able to do at home that don't take resources. So finding something you're grateful for, giving a kind compliment, finding an inspirational quote, you know, asking somebody how they are. So these are all things that can be done without, you know, having to be online. It's just making that face-to-face connection with the people in their home, or maybe, you know, calling and asking some of their friends. If you want to bring some academics into it, so having a book scavenger hunt. So, you know, find some books and find an animal in the book, find the word spring in a book. So just getting them still connected to books, or, you know, doing some math, but still in a fun and playful way. You could do a write the room. So asking the kiddos to, you know, write different things, you know, in the room, or label different things and put them around the room. An alphabet scavenger hunt. So find something that starts with A and bring it back. So it could be something that you do online, you know, in like a Zoom, you know, setup, or Google Classroom. So you could do it with a group, or you could just do it, you know, with them on the phone. You know, find these different things and then tell me about it. And then now's the chance where you can allow students to pick a topic and teach you something. I have learned so much about Minecraft. My son taught me this morning about how to use his gaming headphones. So here I fussed at him all this time about too much gaming, and he helped me today and taught me. So allow, you know, your kids and students to pick a topic and teach you something. I mean, how awesome would that be for them to feel that they can kind of turn the tables and be in charge and of something, or have ownership to something. Just some additional ideas. I've seen tons of teachers parades, and I was lucky to be a part of one, and just being out and just seeing smiling faces, because not only was it our kiddos that we were seeing, just people in general were coming out and smiling and waving. We all need that. Preparing care packets. So I know that many of you teachers, you know, already prepare like little care packets. I've seen when it comes to SOL times, the notes and the letters and the postcards, and like just little things, snack size Smarties because you're a smartie, like little things like that. So when I say care packet, I don't mean something, you know, big, but just, you know, hey, don't forget you're still my smartie, and putting it in their mailbox or delivering it to them or whatever feels comfortable for you. But little care packets that you could drop off. Sending videos. So, you know, like I said, my kids receive TikTok videos. So a video, making phone calls through the Google number, host a virtual lunch bunch or a play date where you just all are getting together and you're not teaching anything, you're just connecting with one another. We have been doing virtual dance parties weekly on Fridays, and that's pushing us all outside of our comfort box, but you know, what we do to connect with the kiddos kind of in their space at this time. So we've been having dance parties that we do each Friday. Virtual spirit days is another way just to show that everyone is connected. And now's a really good time. We always, you know, in the education field talk a lot about the school to home connection. This is when we can really reach out and communicate and have the time to talk to our parents and just let them know, you know, I know this is a tough time for you too. How can I support, or is there resources that you need, or how can I connect? And really bridging that home to school connection. So that is, that's ideas on how to support, you know, our students' wellness and needs, but it's so important that you're also supporting your wellness and emotional needs. Please engage in self-care. Continue to work in teams. Supporting your students cannot be done alone. You didn't do it alone when school doors were open. Don't think that you have to do it alone now. Continue to stay connected to others, you know, to stay connected to your grade levels. Be kind to yourself. You know, this is a new territory for all of us. Allow yourself to make mistakes and off days. You know, teachers are used to pulling off the impossible, or just people in education are used to pulling off the impossible every single day. Your to-do list is far longer than the days that there are allowed. You're allowed to take days just to do nothing and be unproductive, and that's okay. This is, you know, a time for yourself as well. You can slow down. Do something each day that really brings you joy as well. And remember, this is definitely an instance that we are all in this together. I also want to mention that my peer at SCAN is offering a self-care strategy session this Thursday, April the 2nd at 2 o'clock. I believe it runs 2 to 3:15, and she would love for you guys to join that to kind of pick up kind of where we're ending on how you can now support your wellness and emotional needs, because that's so important. If you're not well and you're not taking care of yourself, it's impossible to take care of others. And we get that, you know, you're not only taking care of students, your job, in many cases you're homeschooling, you're taking care of loved ones. There's, you know, worries beyond just, you know, your classroom or what was in your classroom and those needs. So take good care of yourself. This website too, down at the bottom, this link, it's Constant Love and Learning. She was a former educator that really focuses now on taking care, so supporting educator wellness, and then also bringing it into the classroom. So she's got lots of great ideas of how you can engage in self-care, and then also how to share that with your students when they're back in the classroom. So that was a whole lot. I see that there's a couple more questions. All right, is there anything? So I think some people were just sharing that they wanted to make sure that they were going to get resources, and yes, that will happen after this. Any other questions or just things that you'd like to share? Thank all of you. Thank you for your time. Please take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Let me know what I can do to support you in your work. You're still doing the hard work. And that's what, you know, I kept hearing is, you know, oh, I had all these plans. You are still doing the work, and your work now is just as important as it ever has been. And this is when you can kind of really, you know, take that time that we've, you know, struggled to find, you know, before when we were teaching academics bell to bell. Now's the time that we can take that, and the kiddos will remember that. They will not forget that, you know, even when school was closed, that you were there for them, that you checked in with them, and that you reached out to them. That will be something they never forget. Let's see. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Just making sure. So everything will be sent out, I'm told, by Wednesday. So you'll have everything Wednesday. Please feel free. Yes, and I like that somebody said it's good to be reminded that we are doing the work, even though, even when many have not answered. Yes, you are still putting in that work. And so, yes, just make sure to remind yourself of that. We're doing the best that we can in really odd times. Please feel free to take down my email address if there's follow-up questions. I know that there was somebody that had asked about how to reach kind of the whole school. So please feel free to email me and I'm happy to reach out to you. But I wish you all the best. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for trusting me with this time. And I wish you all much, much wellness, safety, care, and humor. So as I'm sitting here with my